A woman has been found guilty by an Arizona jury of conspiring to murder her estranged husband in 2019. Lori Vallow Daybell pleaded not guilty and represented herself in court. Vallow Daybell is already serving life sentences in Idaho for the murders of her children and conspiring to murder her then-boyfriend Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy. CBS News' Andres Gutierrez was in the courtroom. Andres?
The family of Charles Vallow described the last 6 years as walking through the pits of hell waiting for this trial to happen. Then a moment of elation when the jury reached a guilty verdict against Lori Vallow Daybell. They spent just over 3 hours deliberating before reaching this decision. In speaking to some of those juror members, here are two things that stuck with them. The first ones were the text messages in which Lori ended up using the story of Nephi to justify the killing of Charles Vallow, her estranged husband. And then there were the inconsistencies in her story, like describing to police that after the shooting of self-defense, she ran out of the house without any shoes, but there were surveillance images that show her wearing sneakers. There was also the way she behaved in the courtroom. There were the argumentative points when she was cross-examining some of the witnesses that also stuck out to the juries, and that ended up playing a factor into these deliberations. They wish she would have also testified and would have heard more of her story versus just what she said during opening and closing arguments. Now, the judge has set aside a sentencing date for a later time, but she will be returning to court here in June when she is facing charges of conspiring to kill her niece's ex-husband. She has pleaded not guilty in that case. I'm Andres Gutierrez in Phoenix. Now back to you.
For more, let's bring in CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson. She's a professor at Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. Jessica, good to see you. Vallow Daybell already serving life sentences for the murders of her children, 16-year-old Tylee Ryan and 7-year-old JJ Vallow, and for conspiring to murder her then-boyfriend Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy. It is a tangled web of really tragic cases. Give us your take on the verdict Tuesday.
My take is that the jury just did not believe the minimal defense that she put up. Now, we know that in all criminal cases, it's the prosecution's burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there's guilt and that the defense doesn't have to put up any case at all. She, of course, represented herself, didn't put up any witnesses, didn't put up really any evidence. She just argued really in the opening and closing, and I think the prosecution provided a very compelling story. They had evidence. They had her brother saying, yeah, I think she did it. I think she conspired to murder her estranged husband. I think all of that was very compelling for the jury.
And so you think ultimately her decision to represent herself affected the verdict?
I don't know if it affected the verdict. I think there was a really strong case here, regardless of whether or not she represented herself. But I know that she didn't put up much of a defense in this case. And I don't know that having the best defense attorney in the world would have been outcome determinative. But I suspect that there would have been more there for the jury to consider.
So I already mentioned the life sentences she has been sentenced to. I'm guessing that will have no bearing on the sentencing for this case. What happens next?
So what happens next is that she will be sentenced based on this conviction of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. And then there may be an appeals process, as there typically is. We should, of course, remind people that appeals don't necessarily mean that there was some error with respect to the verdict. It means that people in this country get a bunch of opportunities to argue their case, even after a conviction. So I think there will be appeals, but I don't think she will ever get out of prison. In the previous cases, obviously she's serving life sentences, or in this case, I think we're looking at a lengthy sentence as well.
Okay, Jessica Levinson, thank you.